Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 23 of the On Deck podcast. I'm your host, Roberto, and today we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things. We have some pitching performances to cover, quite a few pitching injuries to talk about also as well, and then we have an interesting trade that went down last night between the Dodgers and the Cincinnati Reds. So all that covered on today's podcast. So right off the top, we're going to be talking about a Tarik Skubal masterpiece that literally, happened as soon as I uploaded Sunday's episode. And man, we were in for an absolute treat with that performance. Complete game shutout against the Cleveland Guardians. And it was just pure dominance. He pitched 9 innings, obviously, for the complete game. 2 hits, 13 strikeouts. 13 strikeouts. And the part that is the craziest to me is no walks. Absolutely none. And, the best part about this whole thing was it was a Maddox. It was a complete game under 100 pitches. And, and he finished the game off throwing 94 pitches. 72 of them were strikes. That is, that's elite control. And, after watching all the strikeouts, it was, he was flashing, obviously, that high 90s fastball, which, casually to end the game, hardest pitch he's ever thrown in his career, 103. 103 to finish the game. Like, I was seeing things all over Twitter and Instagram, like, that hasn't been done since Justin Verlander did it, like, almost 10 years ago for the Tigers. And I'm seeing all these things saying, oh, it's the second coming of Verlander. And to be honest, I completely agree. He might even be better than Verlander at this point because every pitch that Tarik Skubal has thrown, like he has such a great changeup as we've seen. It was primarily fastball changeup during that game. I think he threw out of those 94 pitches, he might have threw, I think it was 16 sliders. And then everything else was fastball, four-seam fastball, sinker, and the changeup. And, that's just a combo for utter dominance, clearly. And, he doesn't need to flash the curveball, which is more of like a get me over pitch. He'll show it every now and then, but to be dominating a lineup with just basically 2 pitches, and a good lineup too, like the Cleveland Guardians aren't the White Sox. They aren't the Baltimore Orioles. I can make that joke at this point too, and nor are they the Colorado Rockies. Like, this was a playoff team last year that they faced off last year in the playoffs. Like, it's not a bad lineup whatsoever. And to see Skubal basically run through this lineup, like running through it backwards was unbelievable to watch. And this AL Cy Young race, at the end of May, it's a complete toss up. Me being a little biased, I could say Max Fried. I think he wins the Cy Young, but this is Skubal's award to lose at this point. He's been dominant the whole year, and he hasn't let up at all since last year winning that AL Cy Young. And it's only a matter of time till we see him, probably start the All-Star game. Like, again, I think it's a toss-up between him and Max Fried to start the All-Star game. But, it's only a matter of time till we see if he wins another AL Cy Young and kind of cements himself as, one of the best pitchers throughout the league, in that conversation. Well, he already was in that conversation as, the best pitcher up there with, Skeens, a Wheeler, a DeGrom when he's, at the peak of his powers, which I'm happy to see that he's kind of made a bounce back after a couple weird starts to start the year. But Tarik Skubal, man, he's the real deal. And the Tigers definitely got a building block for their future. Now, moving on to some more unfortunate news. For the Houston Astros, we have Ronel Blanco going down with some elbow surgery. And this is quite a big hit for a Houston Astros pitching staff who just recently also lost Hayden Wesneski to Tommy John. And for Blanco, he was always a starter that, kind of outperformed his metrics. They never liked him. They always thought he was, due for regression. And last year, he put up a really solid season, throwing 167 innings at a 2.8 ERA. While while you look at the FIP, and this is what I said. He always was, the expected numbers never liked him. He has a FIP at just above 4. Was giving up a lot of hits during his outings, but was pretty good in the run prevention category. And this is a hit for the Houston Astros. But on the bright side, we have Lance McCullers showing up and finally looking like the old Lance McCullers that we kind of got familiar with as him coming up as a prospect. Even all those playoff runs as someone that can be a middle of the pack for starting, slot in there into the 2, even the 3 hole now that with all these injuries and kind of newer guys into the rotation. But he had a 12 punch out performance just a couple of days ago, and in that start he flashed the stuff that we kind of know him for, being able to just spin the baseball like no other. It made me kind of think about it, because before we heard about Jackson Jobe and his high RPM slider and how he has manipulated the baseball, it kind of started all with Lance McCullers. Him and his curveball, his slider. I remember there was a stretch in the postseason where he threw like an absurd amount of curveballs in a row, and it was a record. But this was what he was known for. He had such a great feel for the off-speed pitches, and it looks like it's starting to come back to him. This guy has fought through a lot just to get back onto the field, and just to see him performing at such a high level again, it's hard not to root for the guy. This was a guy that I always had high expectations for him, and honestly, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to see a Lance McCullers Jr. start ever again, because me personally as a pitcher, I love to watch guys that are able to spin and manipulate the ball like no others. Like watching Jackson Jobe, watching a Paul Skeens, watching a Lance McCullers, just guys that have elite run and can spin it. It's so satisfying to watch as a pitcher myself, and to see him being able to produce for that Houston Astros staff that's kind of dwindled over the last few months. They're supposed to get Christian Javier back at some point, but you still have a guy like Luis Garcia on the shelf. And if Lance McCullers can power that 92 mile an hour sinker and spin the hell out of the baseball like we know he can, I think this is someone that you can depend on every 5th day to give you 5-6 innings. And I think as his confidence grows throughout the season, just getting more innings under his belt, because this guy's been thrown since 2022 in the playoffs. Like, we need to give the guy a little bit of some slack, because he's fought through so much adversity just to get back onto the field. So we need to give him some leeway to get his legs under him, get his arm back into the swing of things. So I'm excited for Lance McCullers Jr. to kind of step up with Blanco going down, and I'm kind of curious to where this Houston Astros team goes moving forward. Are they going to be, are they still going to be competitive in that AL West? Because that division, it's looking a lot more competitive than I thought it would be. All the teams in that division outside of the Angels are, they're exciting to watch. The Mariners, obviously, they're in first right now and don't look to be going anywhere anytime soon. And they're just going to be getting some pitching reinforcements back with Gilbert and Bryce Miller being on the IL. And Texas Texas is a really frustrating team to watch because their pitching is like primarily their starting pitching is so good. But the offense absolutely sucks. And it makes no sense because that's what they are known for when they won the World Series. And to have like this complete 180 flip, it's frustrating. And they have like, they have capable bats in the lineup. Like, it blows my mind how bad that team has been. And, I personally like that lineup, and I thought they were absolutely going to run away in the AL West. And then, like I said, you have the Astros who, aren't too scary anymore, but, they still find a way every single year to piece it together. Right now, they have Jordan on the IL with a hand injury, which seems to be a little more serious than most people had thought. It's giving him a lot of pain to swing a bat. So with your DH not being able to swing a bat, that's it's quite a big hit. But they have guys stepping up in his absence. And Jeremy Pena's having one of the best seasons of his career. Isaac Paredes is doing the Isaac Paredes thing and pulling the ball into those Crawford boxes, which seem to be like 200 feet away. And, they're having guys getting more comfortable. Christian Walker is getting more comfortable. Like Victor Caratini, in limited plate appearances is raking. I saw a stat a couple of days ago. He's one of the better hitters in the MLB when you have runners in scoring position. So shout out Victor Caratini. Just casual, put him in those clutch situations. He's going to perform for you. So good for him. But, the Athletics, I think their offense right now isn't doing so well, but that's a fun, young, exciting team. Jacob Wilson is a phenomenal watch, especially in the box. That guy refuses to strike out and refuses to walk, but just second in the league in batting average. So how can you not love to watch that? Especially as a rookie, being able to command the box and the strike zone like that, I think it's amazing to see, and bright things for that man's future, and hopefully bright things for the no city designation A's. That name still sounds so wrong to me, but Sacramento A's, that still doesn't sit well with me. But the Angels aren't doing anything. Mike Trout did get reinstated from the IL today, so everybody in baseball is happy today. Me being one of them, I just want to see Mike Trout go back out there and perform. But this AL West it's a lot more interesting. You have the top 3, maybe 4 with the Athletics if, stuff changes with them, but I don't think so. But the top 3 in this division make it pretty interesting. And, if one team goes on a run, we could see it get really interesting come the trade deadline, and who knows what moves are made. Now, in other news, we have another pitcher, unfortunately, going down to Tommy John surgery. And this actually just came out today that AJ Smith-Shawver of the Atlanta Braves is going down with Tommy John. And, this was a very sad story. The way that this happened during his last start against the Phillies, he heard a pop in his elbow, and that's the common thing, especially with how hard guys are throwing. That UCL just isn't meant for it, and when guys hear it pop, especially at this young age, man, you can only feel bad for these guys. Especially when it's something like that where you kind of know based on previous pitchers saying that they hear pops or what the pain is and where it is. Man, it's hard for such a young player like that was throwing well for the Braves. Through 44 innings, he was throwing up a 3.86 ERA, striking out almost a batter per inning. This is going to suck for the Atlanta Braves rotation. This is already a rotation that's had Spencer Strider out at times, has lost Reynaldo Lopez for a little bit, and now AJ Smith-Shawver. Now they're gonna have to find a way to, piece it together for the rest of the year. And, AJ is gonna be out for this year and probably all of 2026 as well. Hope to see that guy get a full recovery and, get back to flashing what he showed us, early in the season. He was working on a split change, and that was it was pretty gross. I've seen clips on Pitching Ninja, seeing it all over the league, and this was a guy even in spring training too. He looked like he was ready to make that leap into being a back end starter and just be a consistent innings eater. Had the fastball velo up a tick and a half, and the stuff was looking good. So the Yankees played the Braves a couple times in spring training, and just to see the difference in him this year from last year was quite drastic. He just everything looked a little more polished, a little more getting that major league experience under your belt. Although he did throw only 4 innings in the previous year, he threw a lot in the minors, and his numbers look good. Even in the year before, had a cup of coffee in 2023, 25 innings pitched. Flash the strikeout stuff. The control was obviously the main issue, but got the walks under control as a starter for the most part. And hopefully this guy bounces back after Tommy John. Like most young guys, he'll be back and stronger than ever. And hopefully this never comes up again in his career. But man, it's got to be tough for a guy that's young that flashed the potential that he did. But wishing him a speedy recovery. And to close things out for today, we have an interesting trade between the Cincinnati Reds and the Los Angeles Dodgers for 2 pitchers. And, coming to the Dodgers, we have Alexis Diaz, brother of Edwin Diaz, who's, also a closing pitcher for, formerly for the Cincinnati Reds. And going the other way back to the Reds, we have a minor leaguer. He was in Single A, and that is Mike Villani. And just thinking off the top of my head, just looking at this trade, you would think it's a fleece by the Dodgers, as they seem to do almost every single trade. But Alexis Diaz, looking at his numbers the last couple years after his breakout rookie season, hasn't been as good as we expected him to be after that great rookie year. Last year took quite a step back, and then ended up getting kind of booted out of the closer role for a little bit, but still ended up finishing with 28 saves, an ERA right around 4, but a FIP at almost a full half run higher at almost 4.6. Strikeouts were down, the walks were up, home runs were up, the hits were up. Everything just was up from years prior when he was an all-star. But this is an interesting trade because we have news now that had come out that Evan Phillips has now gone down to Tommy John surgery as well. So that's quite a hit to the Dodgers bullpen. But with Alexis Diaz coming in to kind of fill that gap and be another integral piece in this already loaded Dodgers bullpen, I think this is a great move by the Dodgers, kind of just giving away whoever they have in the minors. Mike Villani, to this point, has only had 2 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts in 2 games. Does have a save. I guess that's something that the Reds can kind of stash and build in their minor league system. But I think Alexis Diaz, with his release point and how he throws that slider, kind of the same way Edwin Diaz, him and his brother kind of, if you look at them side by side, obviously Edwin was kind of gifted with the more velocity. But Alexis has that perceived that I think the ride on his fastball, even though his fastball is only 92 to 94, because of that release point and how he gets a good IVB, induced vertical break, and kind of has that riding effect at the top of the zone. I think the Dodgers can definitely unlock something here with him and kind of bring him back to how he was in 2023 when we saw him in 70 games, which is insane. But finished with a 3 ERA, saved 37 games. Strikeouts were way up, in this season. 67 innings, 86 strikeouts. That's a K per 9 of 11 and a half. That's what you like to see out of a reliever, especially if you're putting him in a bunch of games, which I think the Dodgers will with how with how crippled their starting rotation is. But I like this trade for both sides. I think the Reds could have got a little more from Alexis Diaz. I know his trade value, I guess, isn't as high because of the lack of performance this year. In 12 games, he has an ERA of 12 in 6 innings. It's not looking good. Walks are, way up. Only 3 strikeouts compared to 5 walks. 8 earned runs, giving up 4 home runs. It might be more of a reclamation project for the Dodgers, but, the Dodgers are going to do Dodger things and turn this guy into probably, who knows, if the Dodgers might mess around and have an Edwin Diaz dupe on their team by the end of the year, guy throwing gas and the nasty sweeping slider, or ends up learning a fork ball from Roki or Yamamoto, something stupid like that. But I like this trade for the Dodgers. Definitely gives them some more bullpen depth. Just more irons in the fire. Obviously, throughout the year, guys are going to go down, especially in that bullpen. But this is definitely a good trade for the Dodgers. Would have liked to see something more come back in return for him. Like I said, I guess you can't really ask for too much when you're severely underperforming. But I guess this is as good as it gets for Cincinnati. I want to hear some of your guys' opinions on this because, just immediately seeing this, it was kind of a head scratcher. Obviously Dodgers fleece. But to see Evan Phillips go down, it kind of makes a little more sense, kind of reinforce that bullpen. But let me know in the comments section below what you guys think of this trade, because it's definitely, definitely an interesting one. But that's going to conclude everything for today's episode. I appreciate you all for tuning in. A lot of stuff going on pitching wise seems nowadays. A lot of guys getting injured. Tommy John is always lurking around the corner, and it's been taking a lot of guys this year. Hopefully, we get to see these guys come back stronger than ever and getting back to what their norms are. It's sad to see, especially all the talent nowadays getting Tommy John. But I guess it's part of the game with how hard guys are throwing nowadays and the stuff and all the mechanics that go towards it. But, it's something that we're going to have to deal with moving forward. So, hopefully this is, starting the trend of, changing the ways that, pitchers work, whether that be shortening arm paths or dropping arm angles, which I heard Paul Skeens talk about. Same with Jacob deGrom, just overall arm health and, longevity throughout the game. And that's what we want to see. We want to see the best of the best out there as much as possible. So hope this starts to buck a trend of, guys staying on the field more. But anyways, that's going to conclude it for today. I'd appreciate you all if you liked and commented on the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And I have one request for you guys. My boy AJ Rowe, friend of the podcast, good friend of mine, just started up a podcast. It's called Painting the Black. Great guy. It's a great first listen for his first episode. So I'm gonna hopefully send all you guys over there. Show him some love. Give him some feedback. I'm sure he's definitely gonna be taking that all in. Definitely one of the better baseball minds that I know, especially at, such a young age. But yeah, no, honestly, the podcast with AJ was great. It was the longest one I've ever had. And hopefully, we bring back AJ for another episode in the future. But in the meantime, go show him some love. I'm going to link the account's Instagram in the bio, and I'll put the link for the Spotify in the bio as well. Make sure to go give that a listen. He's a great guy. Really, really funny. Get some good opinions out there for sure. Might have a couple hot takes on some guys, but that's up for discussion for another day. But that's going to conclude it for me today. Appreciate you all for listening once again, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.